Erik ten Hag has officially been sacked as Manchester United's manager after the club's worst start to a Premier League season in 35 years. The final nail in the coffin was Sunday's 2-1 loss to West Ham, which saw the London club go above them in the table and left United in 14th place in the Premier League, with just 3 wins from their first 9 games. It's not been much better in Europe either. The team started the season as one of the favourites to win the Europa League, but currently find themselves sitting 21st out of 36 teams in the table after 3 consecutive draws. In a statement confirming his departure, the club said it was grateful to Erik for everything he has done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Former striker Ruud van Nistelrooy, who had been working as Ten Hag's assistant since last summer, will take charge of the team as interim head coach whilst a permanent replacement is recruited. But with his previous managerial experience at PSV, there may well be questions over whether Van Nistelrooy could take over the reins on a more permanent basis. With Ten Hag, though, there is a feeling this decision has been a long time coming. The 54-year-old was appointed in April of 2022, and in his first full season he led the club to a League Cup victory and 3rd place in the Premier League, qualifying for the following season's Champions League. Yet the wheels started to come off last year, with the club finishing the season in 8th place, their worst result since 1990. The Dutchman faced huge pressure and criticism, but an FA Cup win against Manchester City in the final led to United unexpectedly extending his contract. A series of poor performances this season led the club hierarchy to take action, and his sacking means United is now in pursuit of its 6th permanent manager since Sir Alex Ferguson's departure in 2013. With Ten Hag gone, the question now turns to who next. Besides Van Nistelrooy, former England manager Gareth Southgate has long been rumoured as a possible replacement. Among a number of other names in the frame are former Chelsea and Brighton boss Graham Potter and Brentford manager Thomas Frank. For now, though, the fallout continues from yet another seismic moment in Manchester United's history post Sir Alex Ferguson. Here's talkSPORT's Simon Jordan reacting to the news earlier today.
And we got the bombshell news from Manchester United. Erik ten Hag sacked as manager. That statement came through in the last 15 minutes. We're reacting to that, of course. 0371722 3344 is the number if you want to get in touch. Manchester United fans, how will Erik ten Hag's legacy be remembered? And who next for what's become a bit of a poison chalice, hasn't it? The Old Trafford dugout. We know that Ruud van Nistelrooy will be an interim charge. United take on Leicester in the League Cup live on the talkSPORT network on Wednesday in the first game of the post-Ten Hag era. Let's get straight to the calls. Ben in Glasgow is a Manchester United fan. Ben, you're advocating Gareth Southgate to replace Ten Hag.
Yeah, I think that people are very quick to criticise him, and I think that despite not winning a major trophy with England, he was able to do something in the modern era, which was create an environment where very high-paid players with big egos wanted to play for the shirt. They were happy. He created an environment where the media were involved, and I think that achievement that he had with how he handled the media was underestimated and it hasn't been rated highly enough, I don't think, by the public. And I think that.
Do you think he handled it well during the recent Euros, where what he walked into was an environment where the media had pretty much given up the ghost on England, and then when we reached a point now where we're really expecting to win a tournament, the media turned. And the expectation of the media was very different. And Southgate's handling of the media during the summer alongside the players was one of a victim culture.
I think that Southgate ultimately, he failed in terms of he didn't deliver the big trophy. And he came within a whisker of going out in that tournament. I get that. But we shouldn't be quick to kind of dismiss the achievements of what he did before then. And the fact of the matter was, the honeymoon period with the media was always going to end. It was always going to end badly because the pressure eventually gives unless you win something. And I think he's got a point to prove in club management. And I think that my biggest criticism of Southgate was his in-game management. I don't think he's quite good enough. But if I'm debating that as a Man U fan, the in-game management, then other things are going well. And I think that the bigger problem at Man U is the years of cultural decline that started with Ferguson and the Rock of Gibraltar, and has led us to a day where this dysfunctionality that is, rife throughout the club is slowly being reset. And it was never about Ten Hag. It's about a cultural change. And I think Southgate is the perfect fit to achieve that.
Not sure many United fans would share those sentiments, but Ben, thanks for the call. Jerry has also called 03717223344. Who would you like to be the next Manchester United manager?
Hey guys, I think there's nothing wrong with somebody like Ollie again. And I'm not saying pick Ollie, but just somebody that wants to achieve the best for United because they love United, they feel what United's about. Rather than bringing in all these people that just, Mourinho pops from job to job here and there and does what he's got to do. Bring somebody in. It's just, you mould them to what you want. Be patient with them because we've already had 10 years of next to nothing. A couple more years, mould them to what you want and actually try and have a manager who wants to be there long term and achieve everything they possibly can. And also, when we get beat and the player, we're all hurt, they're bloody hurting as well because they want what we want.
I mean, it's a good point. Again, I'm not sure that bringing back Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would be the answer, but both those callers, Martin, talked about the culture at Old Trafford. It's a very difficult dressing room, so you do need to be a certain character. Simon's already alluded to the fact that a lot of these players have underperformed now under more than one manager. How do you even begin to change that?
Well, I mean, you look at it and you had Sanchez was obviously pushed out of the building almost. You got Rashford, who doesn't look like he's in love with the game of football. I'm pretty certain the guys who made this decision hope that's all going to change. We start looking at the candidates. When you start looking at other football clubs, it can be done. You can look at Slot going in. You can replace. Okay, there was a great manager there previously, and what's happening at Chelsea, we're seeing a huge improvement there. So, you start looking over your shoulder what everyone else is doing, and then Ten Hag, we knew he was on borrowed time. These guys now.
I would have got hold of Sancho by the scruff of his neck and thrown him out the bleeding door.
Yeah,
about pushed out the door. I mean, that was someone who...
Was there a lack of communication there?
Well, I think there was clear communication. I think the player has a history of doing precisely what he wants, and there was a manager that he came up against that that wasn't prepared to allow it.
Did the management...
Well, I don't know if
Dortmund got to the final of the Champions League.
I don't think he was a
player.
I don't think he was a
did all right.
I don't think he was a roaring success at Dortmund. And I think ultimately...
I agree with that.
I think ultimately people are misrepresenting it, and he hasn't been a roaring success besides a couple of games at Chelsea. And the fact of the matter is, you need a leader. And I said 2.5 years ago, and it's been ridiculed and parodied and taken out of context about what someone looks like. He didn't look like a leader to me. He didn't look like he had control of himself or the situation. You need someone to change that dressing room culture. The culture of the football club and its winning mentality will be achieved by Jim Ratcliffe getting some disciplines into the commerciality of the football club again and the people that are working around it. The culture of that dressing room will be changed by a leader.
Of course.
And if you get a leader in that dressing room, those players will fall in line.
Has Jim Ratcliffe failed already, though? Because it was only 116 days ago that they decided to give Erik Ten Hag a new contract.
It's a poor decision. But it's a poor decision.
But the season's already a write-off, isn't it? In terms of the top four, whoever's in charge, they're not going to finish the top four now.
Again, there will be an argument that suggests that most people didn't necessarily think Man United were going to feature inside the top four, irrespective of the lustre of Man United. In the real today imagery, this was a building season to some extent. Ineos were going to spend some money. They were going to change the culture of the football club. And in an ideal world, if they're very fortunate to knock on the door of being inside the top four, that's what my expectations of Man United were. And this season is nine games old. And they still have the ability to be able to achieve something moderately meaningful. They can still go deep in the Europa League, irrespective of the 3 draws. They haven't gotten beaten, so they're still in that competition and probably still will be in it when it comes to the cut-off point, whenever that cut-off point is. They're in cups. There's still opportunities to change the effective outcome because we've still got the best part of 75% of the season to go. There's nothing that gives an indication that's going to happen, but it doesn't. To me, it doesn't feel that difficult. It's about alighting upon what you consider to be a leader and considered to be someone who has the capability. People look back on the Mourinho time, and Mourinho now looks like an unprecedented success in comparison with what's gone before Man United employed him and post-Man United employed him, finishing second in the league, winning European competitions and domestic competitions, and running teams closer than the current Man United team can even begin to dream of doing. It's simply about getting a leader And Ten Hag is not a leader, and that's the challenge.
And then just the culture has the challenge. And then just the culture has to be, you look at other managers that have gone in and you change that culture, you get people. I mean, when the people, I don't know what it is with Rashford that he's out. If I was a manager, I'd be taking that personally. What is it that I've got that he's fallen out of love with the game?
But then he scores 3 goals in 2 games, he gets dropped. Scores a goal and makes another.
Well, maybe there's your answer.
Maybe
there's your answer. But maybe there's an issue that he just keeps turning up late, and it's like, okay, if you don't buy into that, you don't play no matter what.
But make your mind up. I mean, we're constantly sitting on this bloody platform talking about players and tiredness. So rotate them. We're talking about players who are going to play 65 games and it's terrible. United play all the games they could possibly play this season. Rashford's going to play 65 games and then they'll be tired. So maybe they felt they could rotate Rashford.
But it didn't make any sense that he kept getting picked when he wasn't performing. Then suddenly, as a striker, you get yourself amongst the goals. That's when you want to be in the team. Then you put him on the bench.
But with respect, you don't manage the upside of something, you manage the downside. The upside takes care of itself in every walk of life. The downside is what you've got to take care of. So when someone's not playing well, you back them. When they're playing well, if you explain to them properly that you're resting and rotating them, then they're already in a good zone.
But
the downside is when they're not.
Irrational decisions, doesn't he? What he did, put a fullback as a 10 in the in the game midweek in the Europa League. I mean, you start making these crazy decisions.
Did he know he was going to get fired when he did that? Was that almost sticking 2 fingers up the hierarchy?
He probably surprised he was still in the job, and he was looking for some sort of answers that weren't there. And then you start feeling that you lose respect for the manager, and you wonder, really, is he at the level?
But I'll just repeat that stat. 116 days ago, they gave him a new 1-year contract, or a 1-year extension, I should say. They spent £200 million in the summer, backed this manager. They spoke to Thomas Tuchel. He's no longer available because he's in charge of England. They spoke to Roberto De Zerbi. He's now managing over in France with Marseille. They spoke to Kieran McKenna. He signed a new contract.
Yeah, but these are not good decisions. If De Zerbi's a pest, and he's in a French league because he's a pest. Right, McKenna's at the beginning of his career, and it would be too much for that job. Tuchel comes with its challenges.
Give me a name.
The £200 million. Go back. Let me move on to the point of £200 million transfer fees. If these guys, Ashworth and the chief executive, are worth their salts, then the £200 million that's been spent on players will stand in perpetuity because the next manager will have an asset that he hasn't got to buy. If they bought bad players on the back of the fact that they're totally and utterly based upon Ten Hag, then those guys should be in the firing line because that's the new management philosophy. Buy the right players, irrespective of management. Looking at the managers that are available, well, listen, I'm not sat in Manchester United's inner echelons looking at the reasons why I hired him in the summer, because they hired him. They hired him. Ratcliffe hired him. By giving him a new contract, he hired him. So ultimately, he's now fired him for different reasons. And those reasons will be evident, i.e. the performance on the field and what they think is going to be the future as a result of any changes that Ten Hag was not going to make. And then you look around the landscape and say, who do I want? If they try and go after Eddie Howe, they're going to have a massive fight with Newcastle. They've already had a massive fight with Newcastle of not prepared to pay any compensation for Dan Ashworth. So that'll get bloody ugly. And all that goes with that. There's a world pool. Man United is a massive draw. I would set my ambitions at the highest level and look around at who I can get and how I can get them.
Ruben Amorim, maybe, at Sporting? Ruben Amorim?
Possibly.
Lots of you getting in touch with your own suggestions. One manager and one manager only to take control of that club is Diego Simeone. Give him what he wants.
Tell you it's not.
Texter. Andoni Iriola, for me, great style of football, a real Spanish coach. We need someone who doesn't have a massive ego. Someone the fans can get behind. That's Nathan, the United fan. Pochettino was always the natural fit for United. He has the suave charisma, works well with youth players, plays attractive football, improves players. I don't know who we get now. I reckon Ineos fancy Potter. Hi again, if it was my club, I'd want Unai Emery. I'd make him the highest paid manager and tell him to come and rebuild my club and make it great again. That's James, the Watford fan. Keep your suggestions coming. 03717723344. The Erik Ten Hag era at Manchester United is over. So who next?
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.